Now to a regular feature in the LA Times, How I Made It. A female test pilot for two commercial space companies owned by British billionaire Richard Branson is sharing her success story. Kelly Latimer is the only female test pilot out of 7 between the two companies, Virgin Orbit and Virgin Galactic. Latimer recently gave the Times an up-close look at the aircraft she flies for Virgin Orbit.
This is the 747-400 Cosmic Girl. She was modified to be able to carry the pylon and the rocket between the number 2 engine and the fuselage. Outside of that modification, the aircraft is the same as it comes off the production line. The rocket that's on the airplane right now is our test article, so it doesn't have the actual propellant. It has the tanks on the inside, and it's filled with a water-glycol combination so the water doesn't freeze at high altitude. And we're just using this to test the aircraft's ability to fly with a 50,000-pound rocket attached to the pylon. And we fly pretty much high Mach numbers, we fly high G loads, we take it all the way down till we stall the aircraft, which is basically lose the ability to fly, just to make sure that when we put that rocket on, there's no restrictions on flying the aircraft. So the front part is where the payload is. Right behind it is the second stage, which is a small engine. And then most of it is the first stage, which is those huge LOX and RP tanks in the back. So once it launches, that first stage takes it all the way up just about to its orbit. It separates, that piece falls away, and then just this second stage and the payload do the last little piece to get it in orbit. And then the front is a clamshell door, it opens up, payload goes out, and the rest of it falls back in. The nice thing about the flight deck here is it's really not changed much from a normal 747. So for the pilots operating it, we use all the normal aircraft procedures, which makes it a lot easier to get training and keep consistency. I always feel though, when I am the only woman, like I'm representing, womankind, sort of. I feel like no one else really tells me that. No one does that. I just think on my own, I just sort of feel that like, I'm sort of, if I screw it up, I'm like the woman that screwed it up, right? And it's not really to the people in the unit, because they all get it. I mean, we've all screwed stuff up, so like we all get it. It's not like if you make a mistake, everyone's like, oh, it happened to me too. But it's the outside, look in, that I always feel that pressure, like, all right, don't mess it up. Everybody's watching.
LA Times business reporter Samantha Masunaga met with Latimer at Virgin's Mojave facility to find out how she made it and what's next for her career. Samantha, all of the crew were glued to the set watching this amazing piece, not because she's a woman, but just because what an extraordinary career to be able to fly these 2 planes. Tell us about the program.
So Richard Branson has 2 different commercial space programs. There's Virgin Galactic, and their goal is to take tourists to space. And Kelly, the test pilot, flies the larger carrier aircraft that has the spacecraft underneath. And they'll drop the spacecraft will power up and go up to suborbital space. And the second program that Kelly's involved with is Virgin Orbit, and their goal is to launch satellites to space. So there's a rocket underneath the wing. They'll go up to a certain altitude, they'll drop the rocket will go off, take the satellite to orbit, and then Kelly will go back to the ground.
That's the one we just saw.
Right.
So we did not see the one that has this, you say it so casually, it has a spacecraft on its belly. I mean, come on. What an exciting career trajectory she has had. This is a woman who grew up as a little girl wanting to be an astronaut, right?
Right. And she, knew from a very early age she wanted to be an astronaut. So she went to the library and pulled out an encyclopedia and looked up astronaut and learned about people who had been astronauts before and what kinds of things they needed to become astronauts, and found out that a lot of them were military test pilots. So said, okay, I need to go become a military test pilot. How do I do that? Kept looking, doing more research, found out that a lot of them came out of academies, and she said, great, okay, I want to go to the Air Force Academy. So
not telling her folks.
Right, not telling her parents.
And she's accepted. She goes, they were thrilled for her once she got accepted. But then she really did. She was looking at what men had done before her because there was no guideline for women, right? And just sort of went that direction. She worked for NASA. She was deployed, right? In Iraq, Afghanistan. So tell us about her military career and then how she made the transition to civilian life.
Right. So when she went to the Air Force Academy, she graduated, she got her master's. and knew that one of the common characteristics for astronauts were being a test pilot. So she went to test pilot school. She knew that she needed experience with high-performance aircraft, and so one of the ways you can get that is flying combat aircraft. Well, at the time, women couldn't fly combat aircraft, so she said, okay, what's a plane I can fly where I can get that sort of high performance time? That was a T-38 supersonic trainer jet. So she was an instructor for that. She flew cargo planes, she flew transport planes, had I think about 20-year career in the Air Force. Retired, went to NASA, also did some test pilot work for Boeing for about 8 years, I think. So she's really had a lot of experience across a lot of different organizations.
And a friend of hers says, hey, are you interested in being a test pilot for this Richard Branson thing? Right after there'd been a huge explosion.
Right. So in 2014, Virgin Galactic had an accident with their spaceship that killed the co-pilot and injured the pilot. And so Kelly was approached by a friend pretty shortly after that. She went to Mojave to see the facility, kind of get a feel for what was going on. And she had told me that she was really impressed with how much work they were putting into moving forward.
But she still has one more shot to be an astronaut. The first time she passed but didn't get chosen, the physical. Second time, she didn't pass the physical because of some odd antibody they discovered. But now she has a chance to become an astronaut again. Does she want to do that? Will she have to choose?
No, so when she expects next year to fly the spaceship for Virgin Galactic, and once they make it to suborbital space, she could get her FAA commercial astronaut wings. So she's really looking forward to that.
FAA commercial astronaut wings, something that I don't know, I don't think I've ever heard that before. Samantha, what a great story. She is such an inspiration. Thanks so much.
Great, thanks for having me.